Welcome back to the Mish Monster Sports channel. Switching up the vibe a little bit today. Typically, I tend to come in pretty hot with my opinions, middle of the day. I see a headline and I'm like, oh shit, I need to get on the mic and talk about it. A couple of things that I find pretty interesting that I just want to, just share. Have an interesting Trey Lance theory after seeing his new throwing motion come out. It looks like with his quarterback coach, Jeff Christensen. So Jeff guaranteed that Trey was going to look a lot different post-surgery, post-off-season. So he definitely looks ready to go. But I have an interesting theory that definitely want to run by the viewers. Love to hear the feedback on what you guys think about it. Before we do that, we're going to try out a new segment called What is Mish Watching? Decided to introduce that just because I'm always watching something outside of just regular games. So whether that be just like things on streaming services, but in particular, I have been watching the quarterback documentary on Netflix with Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. On the first rendition of What is Mish Watching? We're going to talk about the Steph Curry documentary and the impact that it had on me and probably has had on a lot of viewers. Let me preface all of this by saying that I am a LeBron James fan through and through. Never had a basketball team, just had LeBron. So I always make the joke that if he gets a call or decides he wants to go play for the Utah Jazz, we're lacing up, baby. I'm going to put a Utah Jazz jersey in that closet behind me. But on a serious note, just want to say that I actively root against Steph Curry because of all of the shit, all of the times that the Cavs have gone up against him and those boys in Oakland. But dude, there's just something so beautiful and romantic and inspiring about sports. Those who get it, get it. Those who don't are really missing out. And so I'm married to a woman who absolutely has no interest in sports whatsoever. And so because of that, I think a lot about their perspective now, like what would my world look like without sports? And not only would I be bored the entire year, I just wouldn't have that warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Like as you get into adulthood, there's just not a lot of shit in life that makes you feel, that just makes you feel like, that inspired. I feel like every once in a while, it's like you kind of need something to make you feel like get you out of that, daily routine of just being on like autopilot. And so watching this documentary tonight on Apple TV with Steph was seriously, it was really, really dope. You sit back, you watch the quarterback series, you watch the Curry series, and I heard someone say that Patrick Mahomes, he's the total package. And I completely get why they're saying that, right? You see the finished product and you're like, damn, that dude is unreal. But then you look at Steph Curry and you think, oh, he's the whole package too. But this documentary puts all of that shit in perspective. You look back on his story and the dude had nothing but a good family and a decent jumper. We talk about him being the greatest shooter ever, like he was simply born with it. But watching the day-to-day, as well as the entire trajectory of his basketball life, it puts a lot of it in perspective. Not only did he have ankles made of glass, he also went to a school with 2,000 kids in it and a name that he put on the map. Nobody's ever heard of Davidson College. Nobody even knows what state that was in before Steph showed up. There are a lot of dudes who grow up with a basketball in their hands and don't end up defying the odds like Steph Curry did. Don't end up being able to move off the ball the way he can, run the pick and roll, dribble, shoot from half court, and also be a pillar in the community as well as a pillar in his family. And now, as you watch the documentary, spoiler alert, he ends up getting his degree from Davidson. The dude didn't show up as the whole package. He made himself into that. And you got to give him his props. I'll say that it makes you believe that you can do the same thing. In reality, there's only one story and one trajectory like that. Nonetheless, the shit is inspiring, makes you want to get off your ass on the couch and start doing something. So I've got a theory on this whole Trey Lance thing. The video comes out on Twitter, or I guess we're calling it X now. The video comes out and it shows Trey with this new revamped throwing motion, no longer that hesitation at the top of the motion, that hitch that honestly just gives defenders an opportunity to close the gap, like we saw last year. I've seen this before, right? Cam Newton, he has shoulder issues, so he comes back with a real fluid and revamped motion. Looks really, really smooth. You see it in training camp. You see it in practice throughout the year, and you're like, that looks pretty good. That's going to definitely take the pressure off his arm and his shoulder. But ultimately, we saw almost immediately him go back to it in the game when the pocket broke down and when he didn't have an opportunity to kind of think about his mechanics. You'd be surprised what that split second pressure can do with 320-pound man running straight at you, trying to knock your head off. I think it's great to see Trey making the progress in the offseason. It's all of the things you want to see if you're a 49ers fan. But here's where my theory comes in. It's interesting to see that there's a report with guys in the locker room coming out and saying, oh, he's beloved in the locker room. And to me, it's not only interesting timing, but as of right now, we pretty much have the idea that either Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold is their guy. So why in the world is Kyle Juszczyk going on record to talk about Trey Lance being quote-unquote beloved? He hasn't done anything to be beloved. He can be a likable guy. Jimmy Garoppolo was a likable guy, but Jimmy has a little bit of a pedigree in that locker room to be quote-unquote beloved. So I thought that was really curious timing, which leads me to my theory, which is, are Trey and the 49ers in cahoots, working together in order to rebuild his trade value? Right now, I keep saying this, it's a saying as old as time in football. If you have two quarterbacks, that means you don't have one. I'm looking at Trey, I'm looking at the lineup, and I'm trying to figure out, do they know if Brock Purdy is their guy? And I'm inclined to believe that they have more faith in him than they do Trey Lance. And so he played so awkwardly last year. Yeah, he had some flashes. But if we look at Kyle Shanahan's past history, it would tell you that he would take Sam Darnold all day over the week, as well as the dude who they've seen have success in meaningful games in the postseason. I think that it is motivating to both sides, both Trey and the 49ers, to make his value skyrocket, right? Because right now, everybody saw the product that Trey put on the field, and then he goes and he tears his ACL. And so right now, his value is in the tank, and I'm just curious if the 49ers want to continue living year-to-year limbo of the quarterback position. They get away with it because Kyle Shanahan is potentially the best quarterback whisperer in all of football. But if they had a different coach, or let's say Nick Bosa decided he wanted to hold out, you can't tell me that this team would have as much leeway as they've had to get this shit right. At a certain point, John Lynch needs to really, really solidify this, because getting close enough is simply not good enough. If you, in this tenure with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, if they don't walk out with at least one title, it would be a massive disappointment and a massive failure. Because how many teams get to walk around with the luxury of what the 49ers have, and they're squandering it because they can't decide to make a decision. You can't win now and try to win later. You've got to take the opportunity now or never. And so that's why I think those two are working together, because the 49ers don't want to lose out on all the draft capital that they had going all in on Trey Lance. And clearly he's not the guy they thought he was. And so because of that, it is in interest of both teams to work out a deal and push it out to the media that this dude looks incredible, that he's a locker room guy, that, we just had too much of a crowded quarterback room, and so we just had to get rid of the guy, I guess, who looks the best on social media. I don't know. Food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. Also, keep a lookout for part 2 of my training camp series, where we're going to be talking about the 10 most miserable teams in the NFL going into camp as well as into the season. Appreciate you stopping by. See you soon.